What is going on, investors? Hopefully, you guys are all doing well out there. By request, we're going to take a look at Virgin Galactic Holdings, ticker symbol SPCE. This is the space exploration trying to take people into outer space, although they're kind of pre-product, pre-revenue, pre-profits, pre just about everything. And they just reported their second quarter earnings. We'll jump in here in a second, take a look at the numbers. Take a look at a bit of the news as well. Then we'll jump over here to a stock chart, see if we can't see some stuff that is going on here. This is a $5 billion company. You see in the after-hours trading, this stock is selling off pretty rapidly, although it was up about 7% in the regular trading period because they announced a deal with Rolls-Royce to potentially manufacture some engines for the aircraft that they are potentially taking to outer space. But as you see here, investors are selling this stock off pretty rapidly in the after-hours. We'll get into why here in a second, but take a look first. First thing, let's jump to the stock chart first of all. So this stock, I don't exactly remember where it went public. I think it went public versus one of these kind of reverse merger kind of things, and boom, you have this euphoric motion in the stock. We've seen this happen with a lot of stocks, with Nikola, with NIO, with a lot of these stocks. They've made these big tops here, and they typically come crashing down. So there's lesson number one for you. Anytime there's a new company on the street, it's almost like the new girl in class or something. Everybody pays attention to her in the first couple days. Take a breath. Wait a second. Analyze the company. This is a company that's pre-product, pre-revenue, pre-profits, pre-everything. Okay, take a breath, because 99 times out of 100, these stocks come crashing down, and that's exactly what happened in this one. Now, the stock's made a nice little base here. It's formed a little bit of a low, and it's come up here, and it's ticked up here, and as we see here, it's trading down in the after-hour session. So we'll jump over the chart here in a minute and see if we can't see some stuff. But let's jump into the news here. They completed a first kind of, they call it a glide flight over in New Mexico. They completed another one of those. They're getting FAA verification as well. That's obviously something that's going to need to, they're going to need, they say 27 out of 29 here. I can imagine those gets harder and harder, and they're going to have to prove to the FAA that things are very safe on these aircrafts. They've completed numerous structural and mechanical installations of the Spaceship Two vehicle. They've completed 75% of the parts. Okay, they haven't even really got the vehicle for a third one here ready. So they're still working on the parts here. They're working with NASA a little bit. They're still in the design stage. I see here they've unveiled initial concept design for a high-speed vehicle. So they're still in the concept stage. We'll go over the numbers here when we jump down to the financials. They did hire a CEO. This guy worked at Disney for a long time, so he was under some tremendous leadership there. I found it interesting that Space actually hired like an experienced guy, like a product guy, and not really like an engineer. So it could be that Virgin feels like they have like the engineering expertise nailed down, and they needed a guy to kind of sell the idea and sell the product to the masses. So they went and got a guy from Disney. Thought that was interesting. They have these one small step initiative where they're collecting deposits, and they say as of July 30th, they have 700. I looked in the first quarter, they had about 400. So these are growing, but it's not growing at a rapid clip. I believe this is a very niche market. Flying to space, I think at least for a while, for a long time, maybe even my entire rest of my life, will be a niche product. Yes, there's going to be thrill seekers that would love to do this. And if you're out there, by all means, get your pennies together and fly to outer space. But there's going to be a very, very even larger segment of the population that, one, doesn't have the money to do something like this, or number two, just has no interest in doing it all, even if you paid them, let alone they pay the company like this to fly them into outer space. Now, I'm sure there's going to be other business lines that come into fruition for a company like this, but we're miles away from that. We got to get into outer space and execute on the first vision to get paying customers into outer space before we even get to the point where we think about other business models. Let's jump into the financials, because these are really telling and really interesting, and I think tell a big reason why this stock is selling off pretty heavily here in the after hours. notice that here's our March period, here's our previous period, and here's our current period. And what happened? Well, revenue went to zero, and cost of revenue when you have zero is zero as well. We have these expenses here. We end up having an operating loss of about $63 million. That compares relatively favorable to the previous quarter at $61 million. But we see that's up from the previous year at $44 million. Finally, for the 6-month ended, we're at we'll call that $125 million loss for 6 months. If you want to annualize that, that gets you at $250 million that this company is going to burn through before they have any significant revenue. We see here they do have revenues in these other quarters, but this is nothing. I mean, this is very, very, very small amounts of money compared to how much they're spending to get this company off the ground. They're spending lots of money, and we'll see if they're able to finance that. And we'll actually see how they're financing it here. Here's another reason why I'm not a big fan of these like early stage companies that have no product, no revenue, no profits. What's going to happen to you? You are going to be diluted into oblivion. Take a look at back in June, they had 193.6 million shares. Take a look back in March, they had 202.4 million shares. And take a look at where we're at now, 211.8 million shares. That's a cool 9 million shares more. What's that? About close to 5% dilution just in the last 3 months or so. I would expect that to continue because, like I said, we have a 120, call it 125 million loss for 6 months. Let's annualize that out to 250 million and come down here to the balance sheet. How much cash do they have? About 350 million. So this is a company that likely has less than, we'll call it 18 months of cash on the balance sheet just to support the cash burn that they're generating now, let alone if they go into production with these new vehicles, these higher speed vehicles, doing tests on those things. Take a look. Back in December, we had 480 million. Now we're all the way down to $360 million. I would not expect this to turn around anytime soon. We have restricted cash. I'm going to assume this is probably customer deposits here. So we have, we see here, look, here's our customer. I would guess this is customer deposits at 13 million. Okay, you're losing 63 million in a quarter and you're losing 124 over 6 months. This is nothing, okay? So again, this is a niche market, and I think even if they have a product to sell to people today, it still would be a tough sell based on the economy and based on how much they would have to charge for things. The other thing you want to keep in mind is there's companies like Boeing out there that I just posted a video on Boeing. We're all familiar with their troubles with the 737 MAX, and God bless anybody that was touched by the tragedy of that airplane last year. Okay, this is Boeing, one of the world-renowned aircraft manufacturers. This is Virgin Galactic trying to not create a continental aircraft. They're trying to create an aircraft that goes to outer space, something that's never been done. Okay, so if Boeing has trouble creating aircrafts that fly, domestically, Virgin Galactic is going to have to spend an absolute fortune on R&D and manufacturing over the next few months and years to even come close to getting customers in it to go to outer space. So that's what I worry about a little bit. So they don't have any debt, so that's good. But I think, as you can see here, they have $360 million in cash. They burned $125 million through 6 months. This is a company that's going to have to keep raising money through issuance of stock or potentially debt as well. From the cash flow perspective, it's equally as bad. Lost $51 million for the most current period. We lost $56 million in the previous period. We've lost $107 million. We see cash and cash equivalents down here. This is where you can keep track of cash burn. Okay, we went from $431 million in cash just a couple months ago all the way down to $373 million worth of cash flowing out of the business. This is a business that's going to need lots and lots of cash. And how are they going to raise that cash? When they don't have a product and they don't have a lot of paying customers, they're going to have to get it from the shares of the stock. That is not good for you, the common shareholder. That is possibly why this stock is selling off in the after hours. So here we go. Let's take a look at the stock chart. Again, we had this huge euphoria. If you bought this stock anywhere up here, just take it as a lesson learned. Learn 2 lessons. Don't buy these speculative companies here. There's no rush at all. Again, 99 times out of 100. This stock will come back down to earth. The second thing I would do is put a stop loss in. If you bought it up here at 37, put a stop loss down here at 30, or at least at this candle here. Because if it breaks this candle, it just like it did, the stock is coming all the way back down. And we see it came all the way back down here. It was all the way up at 42, and like literally a month later, it came all the way down to $8. That is why you need to allocate this stock properly. If you have $1,000 portfolio, you should have no more than 1 or 2 shares of this stock. If you have $1,000 portfolio and you have 10 shares, 20 shares, 30 shares of a company like this or this company, you are not an investor. You're a gambler. You might as well just go to Vegas and play blackjack or just gamble your money, because that's what you're doing with a stock like this. If you're buying it up here, and sure, could you have bought it here and sold it here, bought it down here and sold it here? But again, you are gambling at that point. You're not an investor. If you want to trade this stock, by all means, I wouldn't watch a video like this. I'd watch technical analysis. So as we can see here, the stock is trading down to right here. It doesn't represent it for some reason on a candle on this. Maybe there's some setting I need to turn on, but the candle would be about right here, and we see it actually broke down from the kind of uptrend that we were in here. This stock actually was in a nice little uptrend, and we see that it's breaking down here. Now, where would I want to buy this stock? I personally would not touch a stock like this, but if I was forced to, I think the first level where I'd maybe think about it here is 21, but I personally probably wouldn't jump in here at 21, call it 21 and a half. I'd wait to see if it breaks that, because I think if this stock breaks the $21 level, the odds of it going down to $14.50 or so is probably rather high. And again, this is a stock that's going to be diluting you quarter over quarter over quarter to raise money and keep the capital in the business so they can keep pushing forward with their development, which is something they should do, but you as a shareholder should be aware of that. So I wouldn't even think about buying a stock like this until it come back here where we see it tested these lows several times here, and it provided some support down here at we'll call it 14 and a half level. This is where I would look at it, because your downside here is probably back down here to 9, but if it went down here to 9, you'd probably have some pretty strong support coming in here. But there's a lot of bag holders on this stock. Look at the volume here. There's a ton of people, probably novice investors. Some people call them the quote-unquote Robinhood investors, or just new investors. I'm not belittling anybody, but there was probably a lot of novice investors that jumped in here at the $30 range. So as this stock starts to make its way up here, there's going to be a lot of selling pressure up here, because a lot of people are what we call holding an empty bag of money, or at least a bag that used to cost 35 that is now worth closer to 20. So as they get closer to being able to break even, there'll be people that will sell the stock. So there'll be some pressure when you get up in here, and also pressure from the company as they're diluting you quarter over quarter, month over month. So that's where I stand with Virgin Galactic. Hopefully I didn't obliterate this stock too bad. It's just I'm not a big fan of these speculative stocks. I got 2 kids. I've got a mortgage. I've got a car. I don't have time to play around with these stocks that go up and go down. I much prefer putting my money into Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, Facebook. Look at those stock charts. While they go up and down, typically they just go up. You don't see big moves like this. Like I said, this stock went from $42 to $6 in a matter of weeks. Okay, when you have a mortgage and you have a family, that is not the kind of investment that you want to be in. If you're 21 years old, play around all you want. You have plenty of time to make that money back. I just work hard for my money, and I don't want to lose it that quickly. So Virgin Galactic Holdings, there's it. We'll come back. We'll keep you updated on this one. Maybe there's some signs of life at some point. This is a press release company. We went over the numbers. There's literally nothing here, but this is a company that's going to be putting out press releases all the time. And we saw today they put out one where they made a deal with Rolls-Royce, and look, the stock went up 7%. So I'm not saying there isn't money to be made here, but from a fundamental aspect, this is not a company that I personally would invest in. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. We'll be back again soon with more videos. Thanks for everybody that has subscribed. Good luck with your investments.